permit. He's still rolling.
Yes, so Mayor and Council, I will start this conversation, but I hope to hear from all of you, your input. So just to orient everybody, this is Old Town. We have a special permit that allows use of public right-of-way. So there's 3 yellow boxes here. There is, just as a refresher, the parking area near Symposium that we've been using for their drive-through. That's not it, whoever's pointing. Thank you. Is that you, Julia?
She's not going to admit that.
Okay. So that's one area
But
that,
I was hearing what I thought, what I wanted to hear and not what I was actually hearing. So I am
that's
in
our,
the correct spot now. Sorry.
so that's one area. Of course, the Railroad Street block that has been closed since last summer. You can actually see in this aerial that the tents are actually in the street. We noticed that today with this aerial. And then the third area is an extension of the patio for Smockville. They, through their lease, have a little bit of area that they're allowed for a patio, but we extended that to give them more distances between tables and things like that. So those 3 areas are under a special permit. I recently extended that once again until the end of May due to COVID. As Mayor May said in the meeting earlier today, we received the news that we anticipated. Julia, you can take the map down now. Going backwards in time, so all the restaurants, the eating and drinking establishments as of Friday go from the 50% capacity back to 25% capacity, which is unfortunate and significant for restaurants, especially restaurants with small footprints that don't have a lot of space. So I have extended that till the end of May, but the question comes up, what do we do during the summer? A number of the businesses have submitted letters to council asking for an extension of time through the summer. We have checked in with both the Robin Hood Festival and Cruise in Sherwood that if we did extend, especially the Railroad Street block closure, would that have any impact on their planning for their events? And both have indicated no, that they could work around that if necessary. So we provided that information to council as well. But I kind of want to just open this up. When I extended the permit, as I've been doing, I gave a date of on or about May 14th. We'll make another decision going forward, depending on where we are with COVID. And that's kind of the next decision point to make a decision about extending the permit for these areas. So that's a quick introduction or summary about where we are. I really would like to hear from council members and your insights and concerns as I make a decision next month.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. Yeah, as Joe indicates, it's not a council decision, it's a Joe decision, it's a Joe permit that's in the city manager's authority. What I think is going to be interesting is, yeah, we're going backwards this Friday. But as more and more people get vaccinated, and we have, at some point, we're literally going to have an excess supply of vaccines. You know, how soon we think that will happen? It's going to be interesting. Is it a month? Is it 6 weeks? To when hopefully we're on the other side of restrictions. I'm also hopeful that I think that at some point there will be new metrics coming from the state based on the shifting realities on the ground around the state when it comes to number of vaccinations for those at risk and what's happening in the hospitals. But anything's possible. You know, in other states, there's certainly an increased number of young people getting COVID and getting sick. I don't know how that will play or won't play in Oregon. So thoughts?
Well, I think, yeah, just to add to what you were talking about there, Keith, if you look at the numbers, the hospitalization rates and death rates are not rising at near the rate they were when we had similar increases in the past. So I have heard some early indications that the state's looking at revised metrics. So that could change down the road. I know Washington State, if you look at their metrics, cases per 100,000 for 25% versus 50% capacity, they're almost double ours. So I won't be surprised if in the next month or so we see some revised. Metrics.
Officially, they're not looking at making any changes.
Yeah.
I mean, I literally got that from a go-between from today. But I think just the realities is going to be something else at some point.
So here's my thoughts. So I've talked to some business owners, and I appreciate Bruce getting us that other information that's told us that still the majority of the business owners in that one block were supportive. I think even if we go back to, if the governor, removes the emergency declaration and restaurants are able to go back to 100% capacity, let's say June 1. I mean, I don't think that's realistic. I don't personally think that's going to happen, but it's none of us know. Even then, so I think there's still going to be a lot of folks who aren't going to want to indoor dine or be that close to dining. I don't think our restaurants will capacity because people still won't want to dine indoors or that close to other people in dining. I don't think it's harmful to allow these restaurants still to have street usage through the summer. And then as far as the tents go, I really appreciated Lawson's email to us yesterday from Masons explaining, they will still provide cover from the heat or rain, because we get rain throughout the summer as well. And if we were to say no tents anymore on Railroad Street, the other businesses in town still can have their tents because there's a moratorium that was put out by, I forget the department that put a moratorium on that 180-day tent use. So I think our folks on Railroad Street have done a really nice job at making it a really nice atmosphere out there with their plants. And if in the summer, they pull back the sides of the tents and it's more of an open air with just the top, I just don't think it looks bad. And I would like to continue to give businesses an opportunity through the summer to have recouped for what they might have lost through this pandemic, because the reality is they still have. So that's my 2 cents.
Kim?
So I have my hand up, but I don't know if you saw
Oh,
it.
sorry, Doug. Yep.
Jump in. So a couple things. I'm generally supportive of it continuing. I think I agree. I don't understand the argument for umbrellas. I mean, anyone who has a backyard umbrella and they're on their backyard table can tell you that it's great if the sun is directly overhead, which never happens. So I don't have a problem with the tent, especially once the nicer weather comes and the sides come off. Then to me, like I totally understand when you look at them now when they're surrounded on a couple sides by the siding. It maybe isn't the best. It kind of looks enclosed and claustrophobic or whatever. But once we get into the next couple months and those sides start coming off more, I don't really see that distinction. I'm fine with the tents there. As far as the rest, I'm inclined to agree with most everything Kim said about continuing it. The one thought I had, and I talked a little bit about this with Joe today, was I think it's good to provide some level of, right now we're kind of, it's like, well, we're just going to extend it, and everyone kind of like, when does it end? There's uncertainty on people who want it to end, people who don't want it to end. It's kind of this like open-ended question and nobody really knows. So one thought I had was, what if we tied the ending of this to to some sort of metric, whether it's a state metric or I think the idea that I like is 75% capacity. So once 75% indoor capacity is allowed, then 30 days later, the tents are gone and the streets are back open again. And obviously no one knows when the 75% is going to be reached, but at least it's a very clear indicator of what the threshold is, plan accordingly. And then as we start approaching that threshold, then everyone understands we're not going to move the goalposts, and, you know, and people, but businesses and the public and will, you know, can adapt. Yeah, I think part of being a small business owner is being adaptable. You know, it's been over a year. A lot of businesses are adapting the way, you know, just like every company, whether they're a restaurant or not, is going to have to adapt to changing norms beyond COVID, right? And restaurants are no different. And if people are going to be less comfortable eating inside for a long period of time in the future, then I think restaurants need to be thinking about that and adapting their plans to that. And I definitely want to support them as much as we can in the meantime. And we have been supportive of continuing to do that. But there's also a reality that if normal changes to some new normal, you know, it's business. You have to adapt to that, whatever that may be. But I think I said enough. So I'm in favor of a tie to a 75% target, 75% indoor capacity. Then, you know, we start pulling stuff back.
Thanks, Doug. Other
Kim, you're
thoughts?
on mute.
Sorry, I was just gonna say there isn't a risk level that has that 75%. It's all 50% regardless. So it seems like that would be at the point they lift the emergency declaration.
Yeah, I think the thought was if the metrics change, then the metrics
Oh.
change. If they don't, then what? Obviously, 75% would be the same as 100% in that scenario. But I thought 50 seemed too low. I didn't think that was, you know, enough for the businesses. But, you know, I also don't want to like say we have to be fully back to 100 because that seems like that could string out too long. So I don't know. That was my thought. I just, you know, the number can be flexible. That was just my starting point.
Yeah, and I if I could add, you know, in the businesses I've talked to, and I haven't talked to all of them, the concern about predictability was really big when they were looking at investing in tents. You know, they didn't want to buy an expensive tent and then, you know, 2 weeks later not be able to use it, right? So they wanted some certainty around that. Now that a lot of the businesses have made those investments, I don't think that concern is not as big of an issue in terms of predictability. I like the idea of having kind of a set standard, like Doug was talking about, whatever that metric is, and then giving them a grace period to pivot. And I don't have an issue with keeping it closed throughout the summer. There's been some talk about making this a permanent thing we do every summer, but before we even think or embark down that path, we need to do a lot of public outreach and see what that looks like and how do other businesses in Sherwood can leverage that space and do those types of things. So, but for now, I think we need to take care of the businesses.
Thanks, Tim. Other thoughts?
If I can just add a couple. I mean, I think that I certainly want to support our businesses down there. I think that there's a question whether we're currently supporting all of the businesses down there. Obviously, at the time of the closure, there was a request to close the other side of Railroad Street, which was not able to happen at the time. And I don't think we've investigated or asked again about doing that. I know that there's some concerns from some of the businesses down there about just equitable treatment, that some businesses are being allowed to extend out to even greater capacity than they had pre-COVID. Also some concerns with some parking issues that if we're blocking off one of the main streets in Old Town, that we're reducing some of the parking to some of the establishments that are still open down there in Old Town. So those are some of the concerns I have. I think we do definitely need to put a timeline on this or some type of limit on this. I'm not supportive of keeping it open forever. And I know nobody else is supporting that, but I think we need to come to some type of a decision on that, whether it's a time-based decision or based on some of the metrics. But I think at some point, you know, businesses need to, as Doug said, adapt to whatever our new health situation is and move forward from there. I think all of the businesses have done a great job through the pandemic and adjusting their business models where they could to shift to a takeout to go type of, model. But I think that it would be blind of us to pretend that all of the businesses in Old Town are happy with the current situation. I wish there was a way that we could find a solution to help some of those ones that feel like they're not being treated equitably by the city. But I don't know what we can do at this point other than have some discussions with those businesses. But I think that I know that some of the businesses that we have helped with the tents are very appreciative of that, and I'm glad that we were able to help them. I am just sad that we were not able to help all of our businesses down in Old Town. That's all.
It would have been nice if we could have closed that other side, but it depends on how you look at it. 3 of the 4 businesses did not want the street closed, where on the side that is closed, all the businesses agreed to that. So it's a tough one, in terms of making that fair and equitable.
Other thoughts? Anybody?
These businesses that have the tents out front don't have an option to even have a tented area in the back. So
That's a good point.
I'll go.
Yeah.
I think, one of the big challenges, that the city would have would be, how do you roll out something like that so it's 100% equitable to everybody? I don't know that that's possible. So I think a government tries to do what they can do where they can do it, and try to think of other ways, to assist in other ways. But it is disheartening that not everybody got a chance to to participate. But then I think some of them have been very imaginative and created back patios in the back, which are amazing, just amazing looking. I think about the last time I was at Clancy's and we sat out back, and I just thought it's so natural just to go sit out back behind Clancy's, that could become kind of a norm at some of these other locations as well. Because some of the patios, the things they've come up with are really great. Anyway, so I do support continuing, to help where we can. I agree with everybody else that we should probably figure out, like Doug said, some kind of a metric. I don't know what that would be, but I think ultimately that's what we should tie it to. That way it's pretty fair, but I think it should be a city manager call based on.
It is. It's not us. So
Yeah.
we're not making any decisions.
Right.
He's asking for thoughts and feedback.
Yeah, that's it.
Joe, have there been any additional discussions with TriMet about the rerouting of the bus route and how flexible they are, or if they want to?
They like it the way we moved it.
So, that's kind of the question is, whatever we do with the street, does that impact the bus stations and all that?
Julia, do you want to briefly talk about that?
Yeah, I guess I'm not totally sure the question. They are very supportive of the current reroute. If we open the street back up, I think they will want to have conversations with us about whether or not they reroute it back to where it was originally. I think they will if we ask them to, but they're open to keeping it where it's at now. Does that answer your question?
It does. I just, have thoughts of, there are a few citizens that have a bus that runs in front of their house when it didn't, when they built their houses there. And we had told them at the beginning of this that it was a temporary solution to help assist these businesses. And I did speak with one of the business owners who said he's still supportive of the tents, and he's very happy to support local businesses. So he's not feeling as put out by this, but again, I would want to get his all of those folks' input, if we do make that permanent change with TriMet.
Yeah, and that's a whole different topic. But yeah, we would have to have that conversation and have it be public as well.
Yeah, that gets into a lot of other potential changes we could be making, like moving the park and ride out of downtown because it's really not needed there, and having more parking for the businesses on that side. I mean, that's a bigger kind of conversation about what that looks like.
So Sean, with your comments, are you suggesting or thinking that Joe should consider how many seats or tables are out in Railroad Street for those businesses compared to other businesses that are using porches?
Well, I mean, I think they've already got their sunk costs in those tents. So I think to make any kind of proposal to reduce those tents at this point now would probably not be a popular even question to ask. So no, I'm certainly not suggesting that. I'm just looking to see if working back in the other direction, having some conversations with some of the businesses that we know are not pleased with the current situation, and just having some conversations with them. And I know it's a two-way street, but I really wanted to make sure that it was
Excuse the
addressed.
pun, right?
Sorry?
Excuse the pun, right?
Yeah, there you go. Good one. Yeah, but it's, I think that we need to look at we need to look at the bigger picture here, and happy to help the folks that we can help, but making sure that we don't leave other folks behind as well.
I would add one thing that hasn't been mentioned, because we've talked about the businesses specifically and what they think about it. It has been wildly popular with the community at large, and we also need to keep that in mind.
Joe or staff, the tent rule about only having a tent for so long was suspended by the governor or by the fire marshal or
I think it was
somebody?
PVF&R did it locally, if I recall correctly, and then the state fire marshal basically covered the rest of Oregon. We should
Yes.
loop back and kind of check in to ensure that that is still the case and what their plans are. I haven't had that conversation, nor do I think Julie has had that conversation. So that was early in the pandemic. We should go back and have those conversations.
It was in October. They issued it in October.
Yep.
Ray, you have any thoughts to share?
You guys have already said everything. I don't necessarily feel like I need to duplicate. I do believe that we need to support our businesses however we can, but at the same time, I am in agreement with Sean. There is some perceived inequity. We'll just leave it there. So it's a tough decision, but we need to do what we have to do.
I would kind of keep it this rolling target with potential tied to metrics like Doug suggested. So there is a time that the permit gets altered. If we're into a new normal, then work with the new normal, and everyone needs to adapt to the new normal. Or if or it goes back to the old normal, then great. I personally, I still want to see how just things keep shaking out. Therefore, yes, it doesn't provide, from my perspective, it doesn't provide more certainty to the businesses that are getting that benefit, and they're maybe not as happy as they would if they were given certainty, and that's fine with me to an extent. And similarly, the businesses that think they're a little bit that they're not being treated as equally, they realize that nobody's ideally happy, which, that's sort of kind of making of sausage. Well, we see how the state shifts and conditions on the ground and in the county shift. Any other
So
thing?
Joe, are you gonna actually wait until May 14th to make any more decisions?
Well, I'm gonna certainly take any input from anyone or the public between now and May 14th. But one of the things that I wanted to let folks know that are covered by the special permit is when I would reconsider or basically reevaluate, to give them some sense of certainty that until May 14th, we don't know where we're going to be, quite honestly. I mean, I don't think we thought we'd be going backwards in terms of risk category. So there's still a lot of uncertainty that we're all dealing with. So I want to wait
But-
until where we are on the 14th. I'm open to ideas, but then make a decision again about the period from June 1st onward, what to do with that. And this input is very helpful to me in making that decision.
I just think May 14th, like if you decided not to extend it, that basically gives them a 2-week notice. And I think they deserve at least a 30-day notice that this is going to end. So it's my opinion.
That's good input. That certainly wasn't my intent when I picked the mid-May date, so. And we'll know in early May where we are. I mean, if cases don't start dropping in Washington County, we're going to be stuck here for a while at 25%.
Unless they change their
Unless they
metrics.
change
Yeah.
the metrics, so.
All right.
Can
Have
I
fun,
just
Joe.
ask, is there an agreement that these tents are being kept up due to the COVID restrictions and not just because it's summer, right? If the cases go down, are we all in agreement that we would look at the tents coming down?
Well, would you be in favor of the tents coming down everywhere?
What do you mean?
You know,
We can't control what businesses on their private property do. We can only control what they do on
No,
our
I'm
property.
asking, so there's been discussions about this being a popular idea and making it a longer thing and extending it through the summer. If case counts come down, do the tents stay up through the summer?
I'm fine with that.
I don't think it's about case counts. It's about what restrictions the businesses are under.
And what happens if it goes back up at the end of summer? I mean, we just don't know. That's the deal. We don't know what's going to happen. We're going to have to play it month by month.
Well, that's true. Yeah, the tents, if we're still at only 25 or 50% capacity indoors, that's the reason they have the outdoor areas. Yeah. That's
Sean,
the
my
tents.
perspective, just from my perspective, if we're to a new normal, for me, the tents are up because of COVID. The tents are up because of COVID.
Yeah, just to your case.
Yeah.
Your case, Mayor, people are getting vaccinated. We start to get to that herd immunity. We start to see case counts come down. The governor adjusts to that in June, in July. I know that there have been some, in some of the letters that we've sent is the tents not only help with allowing for more outdoor dining due to the restrictions, but also because of rain, because of shade from the sun. I'm just asking, what is the intent of these tents? And is, are we looking to keep them up through the summer to help keep people shaded and other things? So.
Yeah, to me, this goes back to the, where I like the capacity metric, right? So if we tie it to a certain capacity, indoor capacity restriction due to COVID. So yes, I agree. These are up for COVID. If we want to entertain conversations longer term around this being a great summer thing or a permanent thing or whatever, I think that's a completely different conversation.
I agree.
A whole different process. That's not what's going on here. And that's not what I think, our continuing order, however long it lasts, should have anything to do with. If the metrics hit 75, I'm just gonna use my 75% number until someone throws out a better one. If all of a sudden 75% capacity is allowed June 1st, then, and that's the number we set, then you know what, July 1st, the road opens again, because that's the reason we closed the road. And I don't think it's fair to extend it through the whole summer just because we like it. I think I like it. I like to
entertain the idea of having it be a regular thing, but that's a whole different thing that has to go through a much longer process, in my view.
And that's certainly, to echo what Councillor Scott said, that's the way I view this. This is about COVID. It's about restrictions placed on eating and drinking establishments, we're back to 25%. And that's the reason we're doing this.
Okay.
I don't know where we're going to be on June 1st. None of us know. I mean, we're hopeful, but we're heading the wrong direction at this point. So,
And I had tied it to August 31st if and only if we aren't even at 75%. If we're still at 50% all the way through summer, don't we want some sort of end date, or would we just keep going, or we want to just keep going, keep going? So do we want to have an actual end date regardless of metrics at some point?
Doesn't that, the whole reason is if the restaurants are still being impacted, then
Yeah.
why would we take them down?
Yeah.
Really, just to take them down. The whole reason.
And that may be a non-issue. I mean, again, none of us know, so.
I mean, I
I
will,
think for the,
I'm sorry, Councillor Young, I like the 75%. I mean, Councillor Scott suggested,
Mhm.
yeah, I want to think about that and talk to some of my team about that and look at it from different varieties, but that seems like a reasonable expectation. When you can have indoor seating at 75%, we're going to be in a much better place, and this goes away. And the idea of bringing it back when COVID's no longer an issue because the community likes it, that's a whole different conversation that we need to have, because there's different variations that this can be looked at. That could be a positive in the long run, but that's not the conversation we're talking about now. At least in my mind, this is all about the pandemic and restrictions on businesses that have survived to this point. We're almost to the finish line.
And honestly, I'm not interested in even starting that long-term conversation until COVID is in the rearview mirror and whatever the new normal is, then we can have that conversation. I don't want to confuse the issue by trying to do both simultaneously. I think that just needs to be tabled. And then, 6 months after we're back to whatever normal is going to be, then we start that process if that's what we want to do at that time.
Yep.
and my last comment on the tents is, as long as TVFNR and the state has that moratorium that allows all businesses to have tents, then I don't think we should say some can't. So.
Yep.
We have that right because it's our permit or whatever special events thing that we have. So we could tell those businesses no, but we can't tell anybody else they can't have their tent. So.
Right. And there's going to be a point where they lift that temporary change, because it's not just the tents, it's the heaters, those were there for a reason, and we will go back to that. So it'll naturally go away.
We
So-
exhausted the point enough, or do folks want to chat some?
Joe,
right
do you have
thing,
enough
Joe.
information?
No, this is very
think-
helpful. I appreciate everyone's perspective. This is a challenging situation in many ways, so.
Just make your decision before May 26th. Don't buck it to Kristen.
I've already committed that to her.
Doesn't mean you won't extend it more than 2 weeks.
Yeah, welcome to the big chair. Here's your first decision.
All right.
You're muted,
You're
Kristen.
muted, Kristen.
Kristen,
You're still muted.
Yeah.
Probably best you missed all that. I was talking about giving out your number, even when you're gone.
Oh, they'll find me. Come on.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
This is Sherwood.
All right.
All
That's
right.
great.
So we are leaving for the night. Enjoy your evening. Bruce, thanks for joining us. Good to see you. Brad, Chief, Craig, Josh, David, enjoy your evening. Julia, Kristen,
Sylvia, everybody's there.
Sylvia,